Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Connected Wellness Podcast. My name is Rachel Ann. This is Mary Ann, and we are so excited and so passionate about connected wellness.
Here in this podcast, we're going to focus on the ways that physical, emotional, and spiritual health are all connected. We're going to see how can we take better care of our whole selves holistically so that we can live our best lives. We're really excited that you're here on the journey with us.
Yes!
We're definitely excited for episode 7. We established that we're excited for every episode. That's nothing new, but thanks for being here. So I have a really strong connection to today's topic, as we're going to see. We're going to talk about kind of this problem of hurry. And I'll tell you in a little bit why I wanted to talk about this. And thank you, Rachel Ann, for being like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's do it. But first, let's start with our wellness wins.
Absolutely. I'll go first because apparently I started talking. So my wellness win is that the other day I didn't sleep super well the night before, and I had so much on my to-do list to do. Specifically in my business, I'm in the process of launching a new program. I'm so excited about it. But if you're somebody who's ever worked really hard on something and it's like a big project, it's multifaceted, you have to work with multiple people and different technologies and stuff like that. And there's a whole strategy timeline that's like a month. So that's what this process has been like for me. And I'm nearing the end of it, which is really great. But I'm like, okay, I have so much on my to-do list today. I need to do all of these things, but I'm feeling really tired. And so a little bit into the day, after I finished a few of the things, a little bit into the day, I was like, Rachel, you should just take a nap. We should just finish all of your to-do things maybe after your nap, because you're just not here. You are not pleasant. You're not feeling great. You're not producing great quality work like you want to. And you're really miserable. So we should probably just take a nap. And so I just took a nap right in the middle of the day. And that was a very big deal because I was like, oh my gosh, what if these hours that I'm napping is prime time for me to do something else? And then I was like, Rachel, there is no, you can just take a nap and you can just work on these things. It's fine.
Yeah.
And I feel that does tie into our topic of today.
Very much.
But I was just I really talked myself through it. I was like, you can take a nap. Everything will be fine. What are you worried about if you do take a nap? Okay, we can handle it. So that was a big deal for me to say, yes, we will be taking a nap. So,
yeah. And to know yourself, that self-awareness, right? That, there's no point in pushing through because I'm not going to be doing my best work. So it's actually to my disadvantage to ignore the fact that my body is crying out for rest, right? And this idea of hurry, why am I in such a hurry, right? Is that really that time sensitive that it can't wait, a couple hours? So good for you.
Yeah.
I think that's a good win. Yeah. And
thanks, girl.
You'll see that, I definitely need to win like that too. But I think my wellness win is kind of related also, actually.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, kind of related. See, but I have a major issue with napping. I am incapable of napping, much to my husband's disappointment, because he loves napping. He actually loves this idea that I've seen it on a t-shirt. It says, Jesus napped. Be like Jesus. And he's so but I don't know. If something is wrong with me, I just can't nap. It's just not a thing. But what I have been being a lot more intentional about lately is, if you couldn't tell, I'm always having a ton of books behind me. So I love to read. Reading is one of my favorite things. It's just a way that I feel relaxed. It's a way that I kind of disconnect from anything that's bothering me. And I just can go off into, another fictional world, or if it's a nonfiction, it's one of my favorite ways to relax. And a lot of times I just keep pushing it back. Okay, well, maybe I can read a little bit after I finish this, or I can read a little bit after I do that, or after, whatever. And I just keep pushing it back. But in the last week or so, I said to myself, I was just no, wait, this can wait. I don't have to do yet one more task before I can give myself half an hour of rest, which is reading. And basically I'll be like days ahead of what I need to do for my class, like prepping for my class. But if I have time, I'm like, I should just keep going, right? I need to keep working. If I have the time, I got to keep working. But like lately I'm like, why? Like I'm well set for my next week of classes. Like just take half an hour and read, just like chill, relax, enjoy yourself. And then I'm always like happier afterwards. And also like sometimes at the end of the day, getting ready for bed, I'll just like pick up my phone mindlessly. And instead of that, I'm just going to put the phone down and pick up the book. Right. And that's a much better headspace before bed. We all know about the blue light issues and, stuff with messing with your sleep. So yeah, I was like, go me, I'm just being more intentional about how I spend my time and being a little bit kinder to myself by, letting myself do something I love to do when my work is not suffering,
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. It's like, you don't have to work overtime to give yourself 30 minutes of rest. You're like, I finished what I needed to do. I'm actually ahead of the game.
Right.
Let me enjoy this book. And I think, do you find that helps you to wind down before you go to sleep as opposed to scrolling on?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Especially like reading fiction, like something that, like when I read nonfiction, you want to like think about it, right? Like I'm reading it because I want to think about it, but fiction, it's just like a story. It's just transporting. So that definitely helps me wind down. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
For sure.
You girl. That's a big deal. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you. Well, I have, you can't see them all, but hundreds and hundreds of unread books in this room. And if I ever want to like get through them all, I better just put my phone down, put that math down. Like it's going to be there for me tomorrow and get reading. Yeah. So yeah, I'm proud of us. We done good this week.
Yes. Go us.
Okay. So do you want me to tell you why I wanted to talk about Hurry?
Yes, please. I'm so interested in knowing this.
Okay. So I have to tell you, I never really thought much about this, but my very good and wonderful friend, Mary Isis, you also know her. She gave me permission to shout her out today.
Okay.
She told me about this book that she read. So you told us about a book last episode. I'm going to tell you about a book this episode. It's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. Okay. She told me about this book and she's like, I read it. It's amazing. You have to read it. And I was just like, yeah, that sounds good. But like, I just kind of like put it to the side, like I have hundreds of books to read. I don't feel like I even have enough time to read all the books I want to read, but whatever. I was like, no, that does sound good. But like, right. Maybe not in this immediate moment. And I like put it in the library, like a request. Right. So maybe one day it'll pop up and, if I have time, I'll read it. But then one of my favorite churches announced a sermon series that they're doing called Unhurried, based on that book, which is crazy that it's the same timing. Like this just happened a few months ago, but the book has been out since 2019. So why Mary Isis and his name is Father Anthony were doing this at the same time, I have no idea, right? But I feel like that may have been God telling me, you should probably, pay attention to this. Like, your best friend is telling you need to read this. Your favorite sermon person is telling you need to read this and talking about it. So I was like, okay, I think I need to read this, right? So I did get the book from the library and I read it. And then I also, watched the sermon series. And like, it's one of those things that when you hear it, you're kind of like, yeah, I know. But like, until you actually think about it and realize like the impact it has and maybe it can like change your life a little bit if you like do some of these things. That's kind of what happened the more I was like exposed to these ideas. So do you feel like hurry is a problem for most of us, Rachel Ann?
Oh yeah, girl. That's one of the things I talk about a lot with my clients, even with my friends. It's just like, how do we escape this idea of like rush, rush, rush? I live in New York City.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. A New York City minute is like, and you have accomplished so much in that time. So yeah, girl, I definitely think it's an issue we experience in our society for sure.
Yeah, I feel like it's this idea that the busier you are, like the more valuable you are. Like, and if you're not busy, then you're not being productive and you're not maybe successful or something like that. So we like use busyness as this kind of badge of honor. And like, I don't know. I feel like if someone asked me, how are you doing? And I was like, oh, I like have nothing going on. You know, like I just have all the free time in the world. Like I would feel almost ashamed to say that because if you're like not doing valuable, productive things, like you feel like you're not a valuable member of society. So that's like, I think a lot of us feel that way. I don't know. I kind of feel like we would be in the minority if we didn't feel like we were always hurried and wanting to like do more and more and more and rush from task to task and thing to thing. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just like a lot of value attached with the products or the things that you create. And it's like, you can't just like sit down and relax. You have to have a reason in order to do these things. So how many math problems did you solve? How many, lesson plans do you prepare for? How many promo posts did you prepare in order to be able to nap? And it's like, no, my worth as a human is not defined by my output. And if it was, we would all fail. That is one of the many reasons why we need Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I actually just told a group of kids that we are human beings and not human doings, right? So we do not have to like do things to be valuable. We're valuable inherently as human beings made in God's image. That's a whole separate conversation, but you just kind of, like you led me right into that. But here's the deal also, why I wanted to talk about this in this platform of the connected wellness idea, because I feel like this is such a great example of a core problem that affects our physical, emotional, and spiritual health, right?
Yeah.
Like when you're too busy and you don't give yourself a chance to rest or to slow down at all, physically, you're going to be run down and tired. You're going to have all kinds of perhaps stress-related symptoms, right? Or not sleeping enough, exhaustion. Emotionally, like your brain is just a big jumble. You never have time to like, sit with yourself, do any sort of introspection. You're constantly stressed. And spiritually, like you cannot connect with God in a hurry.
Yeah.
And like, that to me was like one of my biggest takeaways, because I often feel like disconnected from God, and I'm always like, oh, it's got to be my fault. I'm not doing something. I'm not, spiritual enough. I'm not this, I'm not that. But I think maybe the core issue is I'm just like not giving myself time, so that's why I think this is really key for so many of us. Like we try and fix the spiritual problem, the emotional problem, the physical problem, but maybe it runs a little bit deeper. And we just kind of need to slow down overall,
Yeah, because I mean, when we slow down, we're able to understand and actually see things in a clearer way, because we're not like rushing and forcing ourselves to be like, okay, what does this say? Okay, cool, next. Like we're able to enjoy the moment and fully understand the whole picture. And especially when it comes to our spiritual life, I don't know if this is the case for you, but for me, the Lord speaks to me in many ways. And one of the ways is in the quiet moments. And I have to really sit there and intentionally quiet my mind and be like, okay, like all of these thoughts that go through my mind, I have to be like, okay, thoughts, we will go to this another time. Okay, thought, I trust that we will like, do this tomorrow. This time is for like me and the Lord. And I feel like God is so patient with us, because he's like, I'm gonna wait until you're able to just like slow things down, and then you and I can chat. It doesn't mean that he's mad at us or he hates us or anything. It doesn't mean he doesn't talk to us in our busyness, because I think he definitely does. One thing that I've noticed in my life is that the times that I've gotten sick are typically times where I haven't spent a lot of time with God in the past few weeks. And that's typically because I've been really busy. And so I almost view the times that I get sick as God being like, hey girl, since you didn't get messages like A through double Z, I wonder if you're going to slow down when I force you to slow down. And I always feel that conviction every time I get sick. I'm like, oh God, like I'm looking at my schedule. I have not been spending time with you in your word, worshiping, praying. I'm sorry it took to this extent to get there, but I'm glad that we're here. Talk to me. Like, what's going on? What are you trying to deposit into me? Stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. We will all rest, right? we can do it deliberately and intentionally and in a healthy manner, right? Because we know that we need it, or we will be forced to rest because like you're just going to burn yourself out, like you said. So I would much prefer to do it deliberately, so that's kind of, what I want to talk about. One of the things I want to talk about, like, and again, why do we need to slow down? Okay. So like you said one thing, like that's one of the ways that we hear God. And of course, I think it's going to be much easier to hear him when we are in a quiet space internally and externally. Right. And we've given him some time to reach us. But like, think about it. Anything good in life, like it doesn't come in a hurry, anything good. So things like excellence, right? You want to be great in your field or in your hobby or in your sport, whatever it is that you're doing. Like that takes a long time, and patience and deliberate action, not something you can do in a hurry. Any relationship, like, and Matt, I am kind of ridiculous. Like when I think about this, like, why do I expect me and God to be like tight and, have this great connection when I'm like giving him a few minutes a day, before work and a few minutes a day at night? Imagine if when Chris and I started dating, right? That's how it was. Like, during our date, I'm thinking of the things I need to be doing next. And I'm thinking about all these things. And I'm like, I only got a few minutes for you. Like, would we have any sort of wonderful relationship that we have? Like, no, nothing good comes when you're in a hurry, So like, I don't know. It's something that we know, but I like to be reminded of it. For me is really powerful.
Yeah, I definitely think, I think you hit it right on the head when you were talking about the connotation of slowing down, and people associate slowing down and resting with like laziness, weakness. There's something wrong with you. You're not able to produce X, Y, Z. And I think that's one of the biggest things that inhibits us from being able to slow down. And in actuality, when we are able to slow down, just like you said, we're able to produce things really well. We're able to have strong, healthy relationships because they've been invested into, because we've taken the time to nourish them. And it's the same thing with God. I forgot what pastor told me this, but sometimes when we pray, it's just like a quick prayer and we're like, okay, God, I don't really know if you heard me. It didn't really, maybe I caught you when you were busy, I'll try again later. Right. It just seems very short. Other times when we pray, it's longer, it's deeper, and it's like, wow. And we expect every conversation with God or every conversation with our friends or our family or our spouses or our colleagues or whoever to be that like long in-depth conversation. No, some of them is just like, hey, like a 5-minute check-in. How you doing? Okay, great. And like that still feeds the relationship. But what really does it is the intentionality that you continue to do that you continue to show up, so that there is an opportunity for those long, deeper connections to happen. But that requires you to take time. And that's one of the biggest things I think we need to unlearn as people, is that the more we rush and the more we produce things, the more valuable we are. And that is literally contrary to God.
Yeah.
Very, very contrary to God, because the Bible says that we're created in his image. So like right off the bat, we're valuable, right? We are fearfully and wonderfully made. We're valuable. And so it's not so much about the things that we produce. It's because of who we are. Right. Because I am a child of God, I am valuable. And therefore the way I exist in the world doesn't have to be this like rush things. I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody. Right. God already loves me and already sent his son for me. So why am I trying to prove myself to other people when instead I could be spending time with the Lord and in nourishing relationships and enjoying the ease on the journey of completing the things that I need to complete. Yeah. And in doing that, it's usually healthier. And my mind, my soul, my body thanks me when I do it that way. But it is hard because the whole world is literally set up for hustle culture. And as an entrepreneur, oh my gosh, hustle culture is like something we thrive ourselves on. And I'm like, yeah, no. I'm actually not going to be on social media for 3 days a week. And my friends are like, wait, what? Like, how are you going to promote? How are you going to do this? And I'm like, I believe it'll all work out. But my mental health burning out is not worth it. Yeah. It's not worth it.
And that's the thing. It goes back to our stigma conversation from before. Like, there is a stigma against not working enough, not doing enough, makes you feel like you're not enough. And if you do, like you said, slow down, it can be viewed as lazy or whatever, or unambitious or something like that. So, what did we talk about in stigma is this idea of educating ourselves and being the change, so maybe we should stop answering. Like, this is such an automatic answer. Hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm good. Super busy. Right? Isn't that like so automatic when you ask people, like, maybe I should just stop saying that. Just say, I'm doing great. Thank God. Period. Right? I don't need to tell you how busy I am for you to be like, oh, look at her. She's doing so many things. Like, we need to like kind of cut that, try just a tiny bit to change that perception of busyness equals valuable. Busyness equals good, equals successful.
Yeah, you touched on something that I think is really important, which is comparison culture. And we see that a lot in social media and also in different communities of color. It's like, okay, like that kid and that family got straight A's. Are my kids getting straight A's? Like there's like this low-key competition of like who can produce more. And it's like, no, like that is not the purpose of how God or why God created us. It's not to be like who can produce the most amount of things. It's how do we enjoy the life that he has given us and being able to give glory to God through it all so that more people can experience the joy that we have in the Lord. And so if I'm like, oh yeah, like this person is so busy, that means that I'm not busy enough. Maybe I should like stress myself out enough or more. My mind and my body and my emotional capacity, my spiritual capacity, all those thresholds are going to be different than yours because we're completely different people, and that's fine.
Yeah.
So I think that's another thing. People don't see the behind the scenes of what somebody goes through. So it's like, yeah, you can maybe work out every morning at 5 a.m. and that works for you. And you are able to have jam-packed meetings and you're not feeling stressed out about that. That's so great for you. But for me and my body and my mind, no, like we actually cannot be doing those things. And both of those things, as long as it's healthy, both of those things are A-okay.
Yeah.
But we don't really take the time to recognize that. Instead, we just feel pressured because we don't match up with somebody else's output and everything they're creating.
Yeah. And it reminds me too of the conversation I think we had about like some of the resources that we're given. Our time is probably the scarcest resource that we have, right? Like, even sometimes scarcer than money, like, because imagine how many things we pay for to save time. Right? Like, I know you're in the city. You probably use this a lot. I've never DoorDashed anything or Uber Eats anything, but that's basically people are willing to pay to save the time to go and get their food, right? Or to make their own food or something. So time and attention and energy, that's the scarcest resource that we have. So we have to be like super intentional, deliberate, aware of how we're spending it. Because I think that that's actually the solution to this problem. Like you might think the solution is I just need more time, right? Like how many times have we said, I need more time in a day. I need an extra day of the week, whatever. But like, really, what would you, I think I told you this before we started recording. I think, Rachel, you're a little bit more enlightened or a lot bit more enlightened than I am in this particular issue. Like, I'm starting way down here. I need to just like do something to get off this hamster wheel because I don't know what is wrong with me. Why I feel like I constantly have to be doing something. Even and the funny part is Chris is the complete opposite. So he's just like staring at me. I feel like a cat or a dog with the zoomies, right? Running around like a maniac, and Chris is just like staring at me like, what is wrong with you? So okay. Wait, I don't even know what my point was now.
I love that so much. That was such a great example.
I promise I had a point. Oh, be more deliberate about how we spend. Yeah. Because if we had more time in a day, right? Like, I don't know about you. That's why I said this, because you probably would not answer this the same way. But what would I do? I would fill that with more work, more outreach, more phone calls, more planning, more whatever, right? So that's not going to solve my problem. I'm not going to feel any less rushed, hurried, busy if I have more time, because I promise there's hundreds of ways I would find the need to fill it, right? So I think time is not the solution, but it's like paying more attention to what we're doing with our time. What do you think?
Yeah. First of all, I appreciate that you think that I am so far in this. Girl, I've come a long way, but I got a long way to go. You can ask my husband if he thinks I'm patient or not.
That's another question. Yeah. Our husbands can commiserate, I think, about that, perhaps.
Right? What I will say is, to your point about, is it more time? I agree with you. I don't think the answer is necessarily more time. I think the answer is relearning what it looks like to spend our time in a way that it is healthy for us. That's really the key. And also understanding why we feel this urgency. So I remember you were saying, like, I don't know what is wrong with me, but I just I do the Zoomies. Girl, it's not that there's something wrong with you. This is just how we were raised in the world to do this. This is the norm, right? And that's okay. It works for some people. Love it for you, sis. Not for me. I know it does not work for me. And so what you do is just basically be like, why do I feel like I'm rushing all the time? Before we were on the call, I was telling you this. I was like, oh my gosh, in moments where I feel like I'm rushing, I'm like, hey, Rachel, why are we rushing today? Why are we rushing in this moment? Do I actually need to rush? If I'm about to miss a train, then yeah, I need to walk faster. But I'm like, no, it's usually not like that. Usually I'm worried that, I'm about to miss out on something. Or if I spend too much time on this thing, then I'm not going to have enough time for the next thing. And there was a really convicting moment where God was like, do you not trust me to be able to deal with the situations that you need to deal with, to give you what you need for the situations? I will give you what you need for every single thing that you're doing. For your business, I will give you that. But if you're going to rush in the me and you process, how are you going to produce something great for your business? How are you going to be wonderful in your marriage? How are you going to be a great friend to people if you're rushing the things that are important? So it's really, so much of the Bible is just societal things and just flipping it all the way around. And I feel like that's one of the things, is understanding that this might be a norm for other people, and that's fine. But it doesn't have to be a norm for you. And you can take the time to figure out, okay, what does it look like to have a buffer between meetings? Is it a 15-minute buffer? Is it a 30-minute buffer? I can say, yes, technically I am available this day and this time, but I know if I attend that thing, it is going to negatively impact me because I've been really busy, or I'm already really tired, or mentally, emotionally, I'm already, at my threshold. So I actually should say no.
Yeah.
And so it's learning how to basically just reestablish your priority list and trusting God that whatever needs to be on your priority list, He will put it on the list. If you need to change the list, He will tell you to change the list, or He will create circumstances that will create that list. But I think that's the biggest thing, is really relearning what it means to spend time. Yeah. And why are you rushing?
Yeah.
Literally just ask yourself, what do you get out of rushing? You just get to start the next thing 5 minutes earlier.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then you realize it never ends, you know?
So you said the exact word I was thinking about, which is priorities, that idea of, what is most important? I need to think about my core values, and how I spend my time should line up with my values. Right. So, if one of my core values is to have a good relationship with God, that should be one of my priorities. And this is my bad. I shouldn't leave that relationship development, to the end of my to-do list, right? If I want to be successful in my to-do list, just like you said, right? If I want to be fed and be filled and be guided, by God for everything else that I'm going to do, I need to prioritize that when I'm planning my time, right? So that's why one of the book mentions 4 different practices that actually come straight from the life of Jesus, which is cool. Because it's not just I think this is good. No, Jesus did this, and Jesus was the perfect human, right? And Jesus was very busy, actually. So, we should try and do the things that Jesus did if we want to live like Jesus did, if we want to be like Jesus, which as a Christian, that's our ultimate goal. So the first one that was mentioned was this idea of a practice of silence and solitude, right? Of taking time, every day, some deliberate time to sit in silence and solitude and, connect with myself, connect with God. It gives you clarity of thought, clarity of direction of what are you doing, like just this like moment of pause, hopefully more than a moment, but a few moments to take a breath. And again, that feeds all three of our facets of health, that taking a breath, stop moving, like just stop rushing. So and we've been talking since episode 1 about my attempts at quiet time practice. So this is just a reinforcement, that I need to keep working on this, which I have been. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do you have any suggestions? Do you have a silence and solitude practice daily or almost daily?
It seems like it's seasonal for me. And I know we talked about the intentional prayer app. I think I shared that with you. And that's been really helpful. But sometimes I just forget that it's there. Sometimes I wake up and I'm like, oh, wow, Rachel, you have 5 minutes to get ready before your next obligation. There's days that it's like that. And I think something that is really important to keep in mind is that this is a process. This is a skill that we're learning. Yeah. So we're not going to be perfect when we've been practicing it for 2 months, 3 months, even a whole year. It takes a lot of time. We apply this skill in different circumstances and situations. That's how we learn what's working, what's not working. And sometimes we get caught up in how often we don't do the thing, which makes us stop doing it and stop trying it. And I don't want people to listen and be like, oh, wow, like it's so easy for Rachel and Marianne because they do this. No, it's really hard, but we just don't stop trying. Mm-hmm. Even if we haven't done it for 14 days, on day 15, we still have a really, really good attempt at trying and we go for it. So I feel like that's a really big thing to keep in mind. And something else that I think is really helpful too about the intentionality piece is like even creating a list of how rushing negatively impacts you. Something I do a lot with my clients whenever they're like really, really, they have so many thoughts going through their mind about a big decision. I'm like, make a list of the pros, make a list of the cons, see how you feel about each of them. That'll let you know what you need to do. Yeah. And so making a list of all the things that make it difficult for you to stop rushing. Some of them are societal. Some of them is like maybe you have a boss that just requires you to always answer your Slack. Maybe you just grew up in a culture or in a household or in a workplace where you are always expected to produce something to say that, hey, I'm worth it. It's something for a lot of immigrant families. Us kids, we're like, we want to be worth our parents' immigration. So we must produce everything. And our parents are like, I appreciate that. But like, you also can just like chill out, Yeah. I think that's a big thing too, is taking the time to understand where it comes from. And that list helps you figure out what is preventing you from actually believing that slowing down is helpful. Yeah. And even the term slowing down has a negative connotation, but it's actually very healthy. And one of the biggest things for me was realizing how it's impacting my physical health. On the days where I'm running around, my physical body will tell me, Rachel, you need to slow down. I think I actually posted this on Instagram the other day because I was like, Rachel, you are doing so many errands. Your body is letting you know that you need to slow down. Thankfully, you decided to only do a few errands today. Good job. Good job with your self-awareness. And now we need to keep doing this so that we make sure we're not exhausting ourselves. So your body will tell you, your mind will tell you, and God will tell you. Yeah. And if you don't tell you, all of those things will tell you. At some point, we got to listen,
right, to one of those methods.
Yeah.
So I like that idea of make a list of what's hindering you because, again, like when I'm like, I don't know why I feel this way. Like maybe if I, start that process of making a list, then one by one, you can kind of counter those points, right? Mm-hmm. Well, you won't be successful. Like, no, actually, like I'm doing great. The way things are, I'm doing great. Like even when I took half an hour to read my book in peace, like I'm still doing great. Nothing like fell apart. So you can, take those points one by one and kind of, counter them. And I think that is a very useful exercise. Yeah. And then this idea of, silence and solitude, you can think of it as meditation. It's mindfulness, it's prayer, it's all of those things, right? My issue in the beginning was I felt like I was failing, right? Because my mind wanders, whenever this happens. And even when you learn about secular meditation, you know, nothing to do with Jesus, they tell you like, okay, you meditate, your mind is going to wander. That's normal and human. And you just, you know, bring your attention back to your breath or back to that, you know, word that you were talking about with the centering prayer. Like, it's okay. It's a practice. You can't fail. I think that if you feel like you're failing, you know, I felt like I was failing. I realized that because I keep showing up, you know, maybe not every single day, but multiple times over and over again and trying, then I'm already like doing better. Right. And at some point, you know, again, you will see the benefits. Like we talked about the habits and this idea of the boiling water analogy, right? Like so for a while, I might not realize that something is happening, but if I show up, you know, day after day after day, this is true with any habit, right? Then eventually, you know, something clicks and it helps. So I loved that idea of silence and solitude.
Yeah. And I think having a realistic expectation about it is helpful, because if you sit down and you're like, okay, I know that I will have thoughts come across my mind, but meditation is a practice, meaning you practice saying, okay, thought, we will talk about that later. And you just kind of push it aside in a non-judgmental way. That gives you the freedom to fail or really just make mistakes en route to learning how to apply this thing in the best way for you. Yeah. So I love that you brought that up, because I feel like that means like, oh, when we fail, then we must stop. No. We just keep going. And that experience is teaching us something, and we utilize that to move forward.
And you can modify too a little bit, like perhaps, you know, doing quiet time at this particular time of the day just isn't working for me, right? But right before work, I'm thinking about all of my work tasks. Okay, so find another time that maybe you can quiet down a little bit. But also on this idea of like the thoughts just never stop coming. Actually, Father Anthony, who is the priest at this church who did this series in Arlington, Virginia, a long time ago, when he was talking about quiet time, he said that he suggests putting a piece of paper or a notepad or whatever, wherever you have your quiet time. And when something pops into your head, for example, I need to buy printer ink, I don't know, whatever. And you might get stuck on that idea because like you don't want to forget about it. Just write it down, right? Like pause your prayer or whatever you're doing, you're reading, write it down to get it out of your head and then just like continue. And I thought that was a great suggestion because again, if you don't get it out of your head somehow, then it just like stays stuck there. And then it also accumulates. Oh, I need ink because I have to print out this and I have to do this for my, you know, class next week. And the test and the review and the, you know, whatever. So I think that's a nice kind of practical suggestion. Okay.
Yeah. God knows that we're human.
Totally. I mean, yes, he is infinitely patient with us. And I do feel like, you know, as much as I feel like sometimes I struggle with these things, he's like, you know, looking and smiling at me and being like, you know, it's okay, Marianne, like I got you, you know, you know, like and drawing me in a little bit closer and giving me like these little, you know, nuggets of kind of feelings of peace and things like that, that I know if I just like keep trying and tweaking what I'm doing, it's going to help. But can we talk about the second suggestion? I have a lot of feelings about it. And again, I have a hunch that you may already practice some sort of Sabbath. Is that true, Rachel Ann? Yes.
That is very true.
Care to share with us about that? Because, I have a lot of feelings. Yeah,
absolutely. So for me, I do a social media Sabbath where or like fast kind of, where I'm not on social media on Fridays, Saturdays, or Sundays. And then I also do a Sabbath where on Saturdays and Sundays, I don't do any type of like work. So even if it's like an enjoyable thing that I have to do for my work, I still don't do it. And I try to keep work between Monday and Friday. I have a start time and I have an end time. Sometimes I have a client in the evening. So that means that I have a start time, but then I'll take breaks during the day because I have an evening chunk of work time that I have to do. So I don't add on to the work day. I create more breaks and spaces during the day. So I'm not increasing my work hours. So for me, that's what Sabbath looks like for me. There was a time where I also, I don't do this anymore, where I used to put my phone on Do Not Disturb for the whole weekend. as well. So like, no matter who you were, unless you were my husband, you could not get through. I've changed that now because I'm like, Rachel, we need to be social. So maybe my responses aren't as fast or as quick, but I will still respond on the weekend. But that's a very radical approach, but it's been working wonders for me. It really has been.
So I'm not going to lie, the do not disturb all weekend sounds like blissful. But yes, maybe not super reasonable. But okay, here's my question. Do you run errands on your Sabbath? Like grocery shopping, anything you have to do, or is it just work that you don't do?
I usually don't do errands on the weekend. If I do an errand, it's usually because, like, let's say I'm going to hang out with a friend. I'm like, okay, let me go to the grocery store, grab a snack to bring to the friend. But yeah, no, I usually leave the errands for my Monday through Friday. Obviously, as much as I can help it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As much as I can help it.
So let me just tell you why I have so many feelings. I mean, you could probably already imagine, but so as I was reading this in the book, like the author, who is a pastor, like he does a legit Sabbath, not like a don't even turn on the light kind of Sabbath, like nothing legalistic. And we should never be legalistic about anything because Jesus is the one that was like, no, there's no, he took away legalism. He said that, this is actually very interesting. Jesus said, I don't have the verse on me, that the Sabbath was made for man, right? Not man for the Sabbath, meaning that we need it, right? Like the Sabbath is something that we need. We need rest, right? God knows that we need rest. That's why he rested on the seventh day to show us, but not that man was made for the Sabbath, that there's this like whole, structure that we must follow. So you have to do this and then you can't do this and you can't do that and you have to do that. So I would never, even try to do something like that. But my issue was like, he was so hardcore about it. Like don't run errands, don't grocery shop, don't, look at your phone, don't, whatever. And it just like felt so overwhelming. And I imagined like, okay, if I tried to do that, like I would feel totally behind for my next week, because like Sundays for me, and as I said on a recent reel that I made, like part of my self-care is prepping for my next week, right? It's getting the good groceries. It's doing the food prep so that I know I have healthy food to eat. And I was like, you don't want me to even, take care of myself on Sunday? Like that seems, so I think I was like having issues with that. And then when I heard Father Anthony talk about it, he was a little bit less like intense about it. And just his kind of version is Sabbath means to stop, right? It's to stop, it's to rest. So to kind of stop the hustle, stop the work. And we need this like period of time again to just like, and be able to enjoy life. Like we work so hard Monday through Friday. Like we need this time to be able to enjoy ourselves, to enjoy our loved ones, to enjoy God, right? So it's this idea that it's just kind of like taking a breath. And the suggestion was that everything that we do on the Sabbath, it doesn't have to be Saturday, but whatever, period of time you give yourself should be some version of worship and delight, like delighting in God's blessings, whether that's friends, family, nature, hobbies, like whatever it is. And it really sounds delightful. So it's something I want to explore, like if not for a full day, but a half day or something like that. It's something Chris and I have been talking about ever since I, read this, and maybe stay tuned. We'll see how it goes.
I love that. I think you brought up a good point, which is like, hey, maybe a half day. Or maybe you can incorporate Sabbath-like things while you're actually doing something on a Sunday. So while you're meal prepping, maybe you're listening to worship music or you're praying. Because also we still live in this world. We still have stuff we need to do. It takes a lot of privilege to be able to say, okay, I'm only going to do this to this, right? You have to really set up your life that way and be able to. I don't have kids. My expenses are relatively, they're not everywhere. I don't have 5 million errands to go to. So for someone like me, it could be a lot easier. But if you have a whole home, if you have kids, if you're taking care of people, I could see it being really difficult. So the idea is just to find that time, even if it's just in chunks of time instead of a whole day.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's something to work towards. And of course, there's a lot more things, but I look at the time now, Rachel Ann, and we are just about out of it, I guess, as usual. So we can possibly pick this up another time if we want to do a part 2. But for now, do we maybe have like one takeaway? What do you think?
For me, my takeaway is to intentionally do what's called soft life, which is all of these things that we're talking about, which is intentionally slowing down, not trying to hustle to make $1 million or to make a million things. It's like, what do I need to do? And I will do that. And then go from there, and asking myself in the process, I notice I'm rushing. What is this about? So for me, that's a lifelong journey, is to try to do soft life.
Yeah. I love that. I think I'm going to go with, and I want to say Mary Isis and I were talking about. So thank you to Mary Isis, for telling me about this book and having all these conversations with me and listening to me ramble like I just did now. But I think we were talking about this idea of like simplifying our schedule, and that every time something comes up, like you don't have to say yes immediately, maybe pause and think about, how is this going to affect me? Kind of like what you were saying. Am I already like having 5 different things that day, or every other night that week? Like maybe I can just like take a moment and think about it. Cause I would like to simplify my schedule a little bit. Declutter, if you will, my schedule and my physical space, everything except this library. The books are not going anywhere, for the record. But yeah, so there's a lot, that came out of this book and this series. I recommend both the book and the series, but more so the sermon series. Honestly, it's on YouTube. I don't know if you want to link it, Rachel Ann, but I think
we'll link it below.
Excellent. It just like really gave me a lot to think about, for sure. So
yeah, I love that. And I think on that note, we'll link it down below. We'll also link the book down below in case people want to buy it too. We love hearing from y'all. Clearly, when you have really great conversations with us, we're like, that is a podcast episode. So thank you, Mary Isis. And our last episode was an audience request too. So drop below any topics or ideas you have for us for future episodes. We have some guest speakers coming up, so we're really excited.
Definitely,
Stay tuned. Yeah. You can find us on the gram. We're at Connected Wellness Podcast. You can email us at connectedwellnesspodcast@gmail.com. And we would love to hear from you. What are the things you've been doing to not hurry as much? Or do you enjoy hurry? Are you somebody that's like, I can hurry and my body doesn't get mad at me? We would love to hear your journey about the hurry culture, hustle culture, and what you're doing to make sure that you're healthy in all of that. So on that note, we bid you adieu. And Marianne, what do you usually say and wish us all?
I will wish you to be well. Till next time.
Be well.
Yes. Thanks for tuning in.
Be well, everybody. Take care. Bye. Everyone.